American whiteness. Let's start with the basics. Contrary to popular convoluted belief, whiteness is not white people. It is not about white supremacy or systemic racism. It is about an internal perspective that seeks ownership and control of its ascribed hierarchy of the othered. White supremacy is a belief. It differs from whiteness in that it seeks the destruction of all others. It is based solely on race. It seeks to preserve the bloodline of the white race and maintains power through the infliction of terror. While white supremacy is frighteningly violent, whiteness is more vicious than white supremacy. Whiteness is willing to eat its own. Systemic racism is a concept applicable to the policies and practices that exist within societal institutions. These policies and practices have effects and are amplified through the human application of policies and practices. White people, white supremacy, and systemic racism are results of whiteness. For clarification, these are high-level impacts that whiteness produces, but none of them is whiteness itself. They all yield an unfair disadvantage for those perceived as not white. Where not dismantled, they all promote unfair and harmful treatment of these ascribed others. Whiteness is a conduit for internalizing racialization and implicit bias. So what is whiteness? Whiteness is weird. It is a thing studied with critical whiteness theory. It is weird in that researchers don't know exactly what it is, but they know it exists. Research describes it as a structure. Researchers report whiteness seeks to enslave and oppress all others. While this researcher has noticed it is the platform upon which research and the researcher is perched and studied. According to critical whiteness theory, whiteness is a structure. Whiteness is used as a social construct to assign and maintain power and privilege. So, it's a structure that can be used. It is a conglomeration of institutions that produce white privilege, race, white supremacy, and systemic racism. So, it is a structure that can be used, and it exists within every institutionalized environment. It is a foundational structure that seeks conformity to its ideals. It promotes individualism, as well as seeks to label, divide, and conquer. In its unexamined state, left unchecked, whiteness does produce and reproduce white privilege, and can lead to white supremacy. America and other Eurocentric environments used whiteness to solidify the implementation and reproduction of race and racialized hierarchies. So, whiteness is a structure that can be used as a tool. Not all tools have one use, and every tool can be modified. So, it is a structure that can be used, which exists within every institutionalized environment. It is rigid, it others, and it needs to be examined because it is reproducing race and racialization in America. W.E.B. Du Bois is arguably the father of whiteness studies. He began deconstructing the relationship between black and white in the souls of black folk. He later introduces the world to the concept of whiteness, in Dark Waters, Voices from Within the Veil, wherein he asks, what in the world is whiteness that one would so desire it? These works clearly illustrate the causticness of the modern color line problem. A variety of disciplines examine whiteness, as whiteness is problematic in a variety of ways. Historians investigate its association with colonialism, imperialism, and slavery. Sociologists, anthropologists, and political scientists investigate how people of color are perpetually impacted by whiteness through systemic racism and discrimination. The various disciplines, including sociology, anthropology, history, and cultural studies, recognize that the perspectives and experiences of people of color are central to understanding the dynamics of whiteness in American society. Therefore, a social scientist researcher of color or with extensive experience working with and listening to people of color is particularly well suited for studying whiteness. Understanding the structure of whiteness will be challenging. This researcher understands that whiteness is invisible. That whiteness perpetuates colorism but is not white people. And that white supremacy is a vicious self-preservation belief that is less violent than whiteness, in that whiteness is willing to destroy white people. This researcher understands that systemic racism is manifest through the laws and norms of an institution, and that the application of those laws and norms lead to identifiable racism, oppression, and injustice. While it is easy to continue to ignore whiteness, doing so maintains inequity, justifies mild and overt acts of violence against those othered, and perpetuates the marginalization of the othered. Whom does whiteness affect? Everyone. Whiteness defines the norms of many societies, leading to the marginalization or erasure of cultures and identities that do not fit them. If one identifies as white, acknowledging one's white racial identity and privileges is crucial to help end racism. Because whites are rarely challenged and have less tolerance for race-based stress, this process dramatically disrupts this population's sense of identity. People of color are frequently disrupted during the whiteness examination process when learning about how they contribute to the perpetuation of whiteness. Before a personal examination, many only feel the oppressive effects whiteness places on their cultural-gender intersection. It is essential to recognize that the effects of whiteness on black people are not inherent to black individuals but rather a result of systemic racism and discrimination perpetuated by societal structures and attitudes. Acknowledging and addressing these effects is essential for promoting equity and social justice, and creating a more inclusive and fair society for all individuals, regardless of race or ethnicity. One hard truth is that the average black person lives in disbelief that they have any part in perpetuating whiteness. This could not be further from the truth. The oppressor and oppressed relationship is just that, a relationship. An extremely abusive relationship that black people need to get out of. Facing one's whiteness is challenging and can result in guilt, sadness, confusion, defensiveness, or fear. Dr. Robin DiAngelo coined white fragility to describe these feelings as a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves. This researcher predicts that white fragility is not only experienced by our white population. Why should anyone consider whiteness? Because whiteness is the platform scholars stand on to examine whiteness, it is difficult for this researcher to discern whether whiteness is inherently good or bad, or if it is a tool that is being used improperly. It should be studied because it is complex and often harmful, used to uphold systems of power and privilege, historically for justifying slavery, colonization, and other forms of oppression, and it continues to play a role in systemic racism and inequality today. Left unexamined, whiteness is harmful. Overall, whiteness should be studied because it is more than just something to complain about. We have not academically corralled the disciplines to identify the comprehensive effects of whiteness in a single environment. Looking at whiteness like this can help research to understand how it perpetuates systemic inequalities and injustices, marginalizing non-white perspectives and experiences, and justifies violence and discrimination against people of color. Examining whiteness in America can provide several benefits that include but are not limited to increasing awareness of white privilege. Examining whiteness can help people understand how white privilege operates in American society and how it contributes to racial inequality. This can help all people recognize and challenge their privilege, in addition to helping people effectively work together to create a more equitable society. Examining whiteness can help us understand the roots of racial inequality in America and identify effective strategies for promoting racial justice. By examining how whiteness operates as a system of power and privilege, we can work to dismantle it and create a more just and equitable society. Examining whiteness can help us better understand the experiences and perspectives of people of color in America. This can help us build bridges across racial and cultural divides and work together to address common challenges. Examining whiteness can encourage critical thinking about the social and political systems that shape American society. By analyzing the role of whiteness in American history and culture, we can gain a deeper understanding of how power and privilege operate in our society. Examining whiteness can support anti-racist activism by providing a framework for understanding the root causes of racial inequality and injustice. This can help activists develop more effective strategies for promoting racial justice and holding those in power accountable for their actions. Examining the structure of whiteness in America can help to reduce inequity gaps and build a more inclusive, equitable, and just society. By recognizing and addressing the role of whiteness in American society, we can work together to create a more equitable and just future for all people. Now is a great time to examine whiteness because we live in a time of heightened awareness and discussion around race and social justice issues. The past year has brought to the forefront the deep-seated and systemic racism in our society. Many people are starting to recognize how they have been complicit in upholding these systems of oppression. The examination of whiteness leads to greater awareness of how systemic racism has been ingrained in our institutions and structures. Americans have been socialized to view race, and this has influenced their actions and beliefs. The classroom is a space where ideas and knowledge are shared, and its time society should be intentional in learning about race and racism and creating safe environments for all students. Gaining a deeper understanding of how race and racism impact the individual can promote greater empathy and understanding of people from diverse cultural backgrounds. It is a place America can begin to normalize its diversity and develop strategies for dismantling systems of oppression. In the classroom, we can challenge our assumptions, learn from one another, and work towards creating a more just and equitable society. The classroom is a perfect place to examine whiteness because it is a space where ideas and knowledge are shared and where people from diverse backgrounds come together to learn and engage with one another. Teachers and educators have a unique opportunity to facilitate conversations around race and racism and create a safe environment where students can explore these complex and often sensitive issues. By examining whiteness in the classroom, students can gain a deeper understanding of how race and racism impact our society and can explore their own racial identity and privilege. This can promote greater empathy and understanding of people from different racial backgrounds and create a more inclusive and equitable learning environment for all students. Furthermore, the classroom is where students learn about the contexts that have shaped our understanding of race and racism. By examining how whiteness has been constructed and normalized in our society, students can gain a more nuanced understanding of how racism operates and can begin to develop strategies for dismantling these systems of oppression. In sum, the classroom is a perfect place to examine whiteness because it is a space where we can challenge our assumptions, learn from one another, and work towards creating a more just and equitable society. What are your thoughts?